In general, all this fuss around additional weapon deliveries, in my opinion, has only one goal: to drag out the armed conflict for as long as possible. If they are supplied, we will draw appropriate conclusions from this and use our own weapons, of which we have enough, in order to strike at those facilities we are not targeting yet.
Matthew, what was at the core of Putin's message to the U.S.?
Well, he was talking about this decision that's been made by the Biden administration to send Ukraine sort of quite long-range multiple-launch rocket launchers, artillery systems that have a much longer range than the current systems they've got here. It's very controversial because it potentially means that the Ukrainians could push back at Russian forces and even strike into Russian territory if they chose to, although they've promised not to do that as a condition of receiving these weapons. But Vladimir Putin, for the first time, spoke about this deployment over the course of today on Russian television. He basically tried to play down the threat, saying, look, you know, this is not something they didn't have in the past. They've had weapons that can launch artillery this far before. It's about 50 miles or so, by the way, the range of these weapons. But it's just replacing these lost stocks. However, the warning he issued was this. He said, look, giving Ukraine weapons like this is going to prolong the war. He wasn't saying it was a particular threat to Russia, although it undoubtedly is, but he was issuing that warning to the US and to the rest of the world that's supporting Ukraine that this war is going to continue as long as Ukraine continues to be armed.
Joining me now is former Congresswoman Jane Harman. She served as ranking member of the House Intelligence Committee and is a distinguished fellow and president emerita of the Wilson Center. Great to have you here. Vladimir Putin threatening further missile strikes. He hit Kyiv over the weekend. He's grinding out small tactical victories in the east. He's starving, in a way, the Ukrainian population, withholding grain there. What does this all tell you?
Well, it says that he will do what he wants until he's stopped, which is why Ukraine is right not to be bullied and to ask for more advanced weapons. Volodymyr Zelensky made absolutely clear they're not using these weapons on Russia. They're going to defend their cities, and they're going to try to free up their ports in order to ship out grain. Let's understand there's a food security shortage in the world. Africa is now complaining because they can't get food. A third of their populations may be starving in the next few months. This is very serious, and the fault lies with Vladimir Putin. So I think Ukraine's doing the right thing, and I commend President Biden for supporting Ukraine doing the right thing and saying Ukraine should not be surrendering territory.
You get the sense that Vladimir Putin there is prepared for a long war. He will stay there as long as he needs to. You know that Ukraine has the will to fight as long as it needs to. The question is the West and the supporters of Ukraine here in the United States. What concerns do you have there?
Well, I do have concerns that our attention span is short. The elections are, in political time, a few months off, but in real time, 5 minutes from now, and things keep changing. And the networks, not this one, are now covering, and they should, school shootings, inflation, and a bunch of formula shortage and a lot of other things that are important. But so is this. This is the fight for freedom. And if Zelensky is forced to surrender territory against the will of the Ukrainian people, and if things go badly, which they're not going right now, that's really bad news for encouraging Russia. And you just had a piece on North Korea. Who do you think is watching this? For sure, Kim Jong-un is watching this. The Iran nuclear deal is stalled. And, oh, by the way, China, which isn't doing that well economically, but nonetheless is moving to make Russia a vassal state of China. So the world is not, the world is a mess, to quote my old friend Madeleine Albright. And it's very important.
And it's all connected.
Very important.
It's all connected, right?
And it needs to be connected, John.
Obviously, fuel prices are going up partially because of the sanctions against Russia right now. And gas prices are going up here in the United States, which is forcing President Biden to do things he may not have wanted to do. And one of them is to go meet in July, we're now told, with the Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. This is what then candidate Joe Biden said about how he would treat the Saudis a couple years ago. Listen.
Khashoggi was, in fact, murdered and dismembered, and I believe in the order of the Crown Prince. And I would make it very clear we were not going to, in fact, sell more weapons to them. We were going to, in fact, make them pay the price and make them, in fact, the pariah that they are.
Make them, the Saudis, the pariah that they are. That was candidate Joe Biden. Now we are told he will go visit with the Saudi crown prince in a little bit more than a month.
And note that he's going there. It's not MBS coming to the States. Khashoggi was a green card holder. He was legitimately in America. He was promised by MBS's brother, then the ambassador to the U.S., that he'd be safe if he went into the embassy to get some papers in order to marry his fiancée. And then he was brutally murdered and dismembered. Biden didn't talk to MBS after Biden was elected, refused to talk to him. And then MBS refused to talk to Biden. Sounds like a child's fight. But this is because we want lower OPEC. We want more OPEC oil and lower oil prices and gas prices for Americans. And realpolitik makes me a little very uncomfortable. I kind of understand it, but I still think that MBS has to account for what happened on that brutal day that he was responsible for.
So do you approve of the trip? Do you approve of Biden meeting with him?
I approve of efforts to lower oil and gas prices. I think there are reserves in the U.S. that we're still not tapping. There is a fight between, the Joe Manchin oil producers and the Greens on what to do next. But I think we should be doing everything we can in America and shipping excess oil and gas to Europe. And Europe should be investing in LNG terminals, which it hasn't invested in.
How do you toe that rhetorical line if you're President Biden meeting with someone who you at one point said you were going to make a pariah?
It's pretty hard to explain away. I mean, Biden's been dealt a tough hand. A lot of things have gone wrong in his presidency, some of them not his fault. And the oil and gas problem is bigger than just Ukraine. Surely it is. But he is trying his best to help America. That's what he was elected to do, and to keep America secure. And the fight in Ukraine is a big piece of that. And he's doing that well, and organizing a trade group in Asia, working with the Quad in Asia is part of that. Some kind of aggressive strategy against North Korea is part of it. But there are a lot of fires and the need for one global strategy for American leadership, which we have lacked since the end of the Cold War.
Jane Harman, great to see you. Thanks so much for helping us
Thank you,
understand what's
John.
going on everywhere right now.